We're good? Everything is where it's supposed to be now?
Everything is where it was supposed to be.
Okay.
Wait, this isn't right. Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah.
I got most of it right.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
How do you do? We're about to unfold the story of
Ghost of Frankenstein.
My son, would you destroy that which I, your father, dedicated his life to creating? What if it had another brain?
Whose brain?
Your brain.
Bummer! What good is a brain without eyes to see?
I warned you that you might regret this action.
Well, we've warned you.
You've been warned. Welcome back to Frankenstein Minute. That's the podcast. This is the podcast where we fucking A.
You know, it's been a long day.
Oh, God. Well, you've been warned. Welcome back to Frankenstein Minute, the podcast that dissects the Universal Frankenstein film series minute by minute. I'm Bill Evenson.
I think I'm Thom Lang after
Well,
all that, but
who
I'm
could
not sure
say?
anymore.
Hey, I did a panel at the Gallifrey 1 Doctor Who convention, which is now 6 weeks ago. And it was a horror panel because my friend who runs the convention asked me, he said, "You're the horror guy I know. Will you be on a horror panel and moderate with some of the guests?" Would love to. So there were a couple of guests I hadn't heard of, and one of them is a horror author named Mark Morris. The other guy, Ian Winterton. Doesn't matter. Third person, Rachel Talalay, director of Freddy's Dead, The Final
is that
Nightmare,
right?
and many other things. Tank Girl.
Yeah.
Also really well known for directing all the best episodes, all the best directed episodes of Doctor Who over the last 5 years or whatever. It seems like whenever there's a standout episode, she directed it. And it was very handy for me to say at the beginning, we got some really great horror credentials up here, except me, I have a podcast. And that got a laugh, and then I was able to just go do the script and say, it's called Frankenstein Minute. We dissect the universe of Frankenstein films. Anyways, if you are listening to this podcast on the day that it came out and you are a Patreon, it's Thursday, March 28th.
Indeed.
And Gil Perkins died in 1999.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lived to be an old guy. Maybe all that swimming. I don't know.
He wasn't.
Swimming is good for you.
Did he swim?
Doesn't Gil? Who am I thinking of? Who played the
Rico
creature
Browning
from the
is
Black?
what you're-
That's who I'm thinking of. Well, yeah, Gil Perkins really did live to be an old guy then.
Gil Perkins is a stuntman. We'll see lots of him in the next film.
This is also, of course, as most people I assume know, the anniversary of the release of Man-Made Monster in 1941.
Oh, yeah. I get the day off.
Yeah, that's naturally. If you are a cheapskate and are listening to this on Friday, it is Onslow Stevens' birthday.
Oh.
Onslow is 206.
Is he really?
I'm not
Doesn't
doing
look
any
a
math, I
day
can't figure
over 205.
And speaking of 206, tomorrow's Turhan Bey's birthday.
Oh.
And
Yeah, he lived a long life, and he's in a lot of those documentaries.
Turhan Bey?
Yeah.
Oh, I take it back. He was born. I'm sorry. It was did I say birthday or?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did say birthday.
You did.
Okay. I'm losing my mind.
Whatever,
Because you know what it is then the day after that is the anniversary of the day Anne Gwynn died. Okay.
I think she is in House of Frankenstein.
And the day after that is my birthday and nothing else.
Happy birthday.
Nothing else happens on April 1st of any consequence.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay then. Hopping right in. Die, Igor said in the last minute. I will live again.
Yeah.
Only this crooked body will die. I will live forever.
I like the use of crooked there.
Yeah.
He's throwing it back in
Bomer's face.
Bomer's face.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's
I
crooked.
got a crooked body.
Yeah.
Check out this shit. You put it in you put my brain in that body.
Yep.
You don't think he would can you say it like that in the Igor voice?
Yeah, I've got a crooked body, but check out this shit.
It actually works. Yeah. He would say that.
Yep.
He might say scheisse.
I will live forever. Bomer looks a little bit skeptical.
But he doesn't seem concerned.
No, but he's just a little like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
Okay.
Is what I take from it.
Good.
It's not like he's having second thoughts or like, yeah, this is nonsense. He's just like,
I think that's the key.
Live forever. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, and that's what you want from this scene is for him to be like, well,
maybe.
It's all right. And then so to put Bomer at his ease, Igor says what?
This will really
this will calm things
assuage
down.
your fears. He says, "We have ruled the state and even the whole city No.
Yeah.
Even the whole country.
But what a...
And he winks.
No, I was actually talking about a different line.
Oh.
You missed the line.
I will live forever? Did I miss the line?
After that line.
What
he
did I
says,
miss?
my brain in that body would make me a leader.
Oh,
of
yeah,
men."
yeah. I guess I didn't write it down. Yeah.
Which...
My brain in that body would make me a leader of men.
And to me, in this part, Ludwig is almost not paying attention anymore because he's
not even in the
distracted.
scene, so he's not paying attention at all.
Yeah, you're right. I meant Lionel, I guess, or I don't know what I meant.
Bomer is not.
Theodore Kurt Bomer is not.
Theodore Kurt Bomer, you get in here right this instant.
He is Curtis. Theodore Curtis Bomer.
Bomer.
You get in here, right in here this instant. He's sort of looking off into space, and it's appropriate that he do so because he's distracted. He's
rolling this over in his head.
He's thinking about, well, he might have something here.
This isn't bad.
And it appears to me as if he's kind of missing the important part because I think he's only thinking about fucking over Ludwig.
And not seeing
fantasizing about becoming the regent of the university or whatever.
Whereas Igor's got.
And Igor's like, hey, man,
come on,
this is gonna be great. I'm gonna be like Hitler. You know, and wait a minute. Actually, I suppose that Hitler was around by then. It was a very big problem.
Yeah, certainly by 1942, it was a big
by
issue.
42, he had really become a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Harder to ignore him.
Yeah.
In 42, I guess. I remember we said they started making this in December of 41.
Yeah.
Anyway, big problem. And so it's my contention that perhaps Bomer's not paying attention to the important part. My brain in that body would make me a leader of men. That's not a good thing. And then
the optics aren't good there.
The optics aren't good.
He said, we would rule the state, even the whole country.
Yeah, I think we've talked about a little bit. It's such an odd thing. You never hear anybody outside the United States say this, I don't think. Is there any country on Earth, in the history of the Earth, that is comprised of states? It's why we're called the United States, is because it's so weird.
Well, I think maybe not as an official state, but I've heard it used to like...
provinces in Canada.
Things like that, but I think it's just sort of a generic term.
Well, to me, the generic term state means country, generally, or head of state, like
head of states,
Yeah, it doesn't mean something less than country, anywhere outside of this country. So it's just odd. It doesn't ring right. It's odd anyway.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't say that anyway. Like that'd be like you and I having a conversation and be like, we could rule Minnesota.
Even
what?
Even the Midwest.
Yeah. It's an odd way to climb that ladder.
It is.
Oh well.
Well, this notion of ruling the world or ruling
Henry had these notions.
Yeah, this massive piece of geography is pretty unlikely anyway.
Okay. Oh, just for anybody?
Just for anybody.
Yeah.
And somebody that looks like this, big clump and goober.
What's weird about you saying that is, and I don't think I put this in my notes.
But speaking of big clump and goobers, there was a big clump and goober trying to rule this country already.
Well, I was going to say at that time, we were just talking about Hitler. Hitler's not exactly winning beauty contests. The guy's a fucking weirdo.
He's a goofball.
I was just when I'm not doing this, I'm watching World War II videos and listening to Beatles videos.
Beatles, yeah.
He's a goober. And what fascinates probably most people when they think about this nowadays anyway is how was that compelling? How was he a compelling leader of men? Because he really made just a few mistakes on his way to potentially ruling the world.
Yeah, I know.
And this guy was not cool, ever.
No.
So, I mean,
I don't know.
If you look like that, I don't know, maybe. And if you put that brain in that body.
Yeah, he winks when he says that. Which is kind of cute.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's very...
Lugosi's on fire here.
Yeah, he's doing his job. Mm-hmm. He's doing it well. You'll do as I say, and you will have everything you want.
I have one problem with that line. Is that you're right, that is how he said it, and the subtitles are right, that is how he said it, but he shouldn't say you'll. It works better in English to say, you do as I say, and you can have anything you want.
Yeah.
When you say you'll do as I say, you're changing it and making it weird. That's my problem.
Yeah, it is a little, but again, I think
clunky.
it's one of those syntax things that Lugosi sometimes will struggle with.
That's what I think it is. And in the past, we've not had a lot of popularity when we try and put that forward. But I think sometimes the language doesn't quite work.
Sometimes happens, and you can't. I know Lugosi files will get uptight about it, but
like this example, for example, is it's very really close. It's not even. It's a very subtle distinction.
It's most people probably don't even notice it that aren't looking at these things with this kind of
Yeah, that's
nonsensical
true too.
detail.
I probably didn't notice it until yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah, good point.
Then we have one of those long crossfades again.
Yeah, long enough that I laughed.
Yep.
And I started to count it out, and I got to like 4 seconds.
Yeah, it's really a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it, at that point, was a real change, maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Because you would try to put those where there was either a scene break that was very obvious,
Yeah.
or, look at Rope. Anytime there's a really radical change in angle, it's because the reel changed.
Yeah.
And up until the last 10, 15 years, that was a thing in movies.
Up until the last 10, 15 years from ago?
From now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's all digital projection.
It's more than 15. Well, yeah, I guess you're right. 15 years.
It's all digital projection.
Because
So you don't see
Revenge, no. Attack of the Clones is 2002, and that's 23 years ago. So yeah, we still had plenty of film.
Yeah.
But it seems like I guess in my head I pictured it being right around that time everything went digital, but I guess it was a rollout.
It was not, one day it's film, the next day it's digital.
Yeah.
It was gradual.
Yep. I was talking to somebody the other day about the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I received a free ticket to go see when I was a little kid because I was in the Star Wars fan club, and it was at Northtown Theater in Blaine. And my mommy took me. I was 11 years old, and I know where one of the real changes was because they screwed it up. Oh. And I always say this, and I don't know if it's fair, but I always assume they've never shown it before. It's a preview screening, so that's why they screwed it up. But in my head, I also think, well, they still shouldn't have screwed it up.
Yes.
Those little markers are on there.
Yeah.
But it's when Indiana Jones says, "Get the pry bars in," and I'll always remember that because I'm just like, at that point, you're just like, oh my God, dude, it's one of the greatest movies ever, in my opinion. For me personally, I was just blown away because I had very little interest in seeing it. It didn't look interesting to me. I was like, well, that's Han Solo, but okay.
Yes, I saw a thing of some stuff in like Starlog or something about it. I'm like, oh, that looks
plus,
really...
you were like 15 I think.
Yeah.
So that's where our age differences matter, is when you were that age. Yeah. And I was like, I don't have any interest in this. And then, at that point, I'm just fixated on the screen, and it just goes...
Yes, because I... Oh, did it?
Like, I mean, I don't know if it made that noise, but it was just over.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, what's happening now? And then they turn it on, and they're like, okay, here we go again.
Well, you used to be able to tell when one was coming that scratches would start to appear on the film.
Because it's
the beginning and end of a reel.
As they transport these things back and forth and run them into because they have to push them into the projector? The ends are going to get more beat up.
Okay. And so you could see, and you'd hear it on the soundtrack too. And then it would be a click, click, and you'd almost physically feel the real change from,
So, now that you say that happened all the time. Because when we were kids, or up until 15 years ago, I don't know, but when we were kids, movies would be in the theaters for a long time.
Yeah.
I saw Star Wars every year. Every summer it would come back.
Yeah. Well, and it played at that one in St. Louis Park for years at a time.
That thing was all beat to shit.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the things.
The last time I saw it, it was just ragged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the one we always talked about is Robert and I going to see Son of Frankenstein and seeing that big scratch on the reel. And then sure enough, you and I went to see it.
There it was.
And it looked so clean. I was like, it's digital. And then all of a sudden there came that scratch again. I was like, I know which print it is.
I saw the same print of MASH like 3 times.
And you know it because of the
where
scratches
splices and scratches were.
Yeah, and splices where dialogue would... Yeah, and so then that's what we're talking... To bring it back, that's what you're saying, is why that was
such a long...
So how many reels would a film like this be? 3? 4?
No, gosh.
7?
5 maybe? 4 or 5 maybe. Okay. No, more than that. 6-ish.
So it's about 10 minutes?
A reel is, because 2 reelers, like a Laurel and Hardy, is about 20 minutes.
Okay. So this could easily be a real change then.
Yeah.
They could be anywhere.
Yeah. They would do it in editing where it most accommodated, as you're getting close. So there wasn't like a reel is exactly X amount of feet.
Oh, okay. They're all different.
They're all slightly different because of where that edit would have to be.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want to edit in the middle of a conversation.
Well, you could, but you just had to have a gap.
Yeah.
And a definite break in the way it's shot.
What about a movie like His Girl Friday, where the dialogue starts at the beginning of the film and ends at the end of the film?
Yeah.
If you chop one of those up, would that be all fucking...
That had to be tough. Yeah. Yep.
I suppose there are probably scenes where a guy walks out of a building and then walks into another building, and I don't remember those.
Yeah. You think it's just dialogue nonstop.
But there must be some breaks.
Yes, there has to be. So we crossfade, we fade up to Eric and the Gestapo are waiting in Ludwig's study.
I guess at this point.
It looks like
Yeah.
the guy standing with his back to the camera on the
Yeah.
left hand. He looks like a Gestapo. He's kind of pacing like one too as
Yes,
the
true.
scene starts.
Yeah. And it's funny because as we're introduced to him, we see him from the back.
Yeah,
So I was going to make some comment about who is this guy or whatever, but he has
his dialogue.
he has dialogue here and he
And
has
then
more
he-
dialogue facing the camera later. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't.
So
I
who is
don't-
this?
I don't introduce him yet because we don't see his face.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Excellent work. Hey, I gotta say, and
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it down after watching it just now, and based partly on one of our Patreon's comments, Charles Paulson mentioned, Evelyn Ankers' acting, I think, is really good when she comes in the room. The way she expresses her discomfort, but she tries to express to Eric that she's happy to see him. But like it's all there in her face.
There's a lot going on there.
There's a lot
yeah,
going
'cause
on there.
she's-
It's pretty great.
It's like she can't approach him because of what the situation.
And it's now become an official thing.
Yeah, and he looks uncomfortable. He's kind of sitting on Ludwig's desk with his hands at his sides, just kind of like not looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, and it's not going to go well.
No.
But this week it's going to be fine.
This week is fine.
Yeah. Then it all goes to hell next
Yep.
week. Okay, so then...
Lots of good evenings are
Oh, I
exchanged.
wrote something. See, I don't know why I have this here.
Huh.
I don't understand. Okay, new question.
Yeah.
Why do I have this in my notes?
Okay.
I have, good evening, doctor. Oh, this is where I wrote the part about Frankenstein saying, what is your RPM, Kurt? Why would I have said that here? Oh, because I think I was trying to say this is in between that scene and this scene, but now it's just a black spot that comes to here. I think this is about in the place in the script where he's talking to Kurt, who's Bomer, and he's talking about his RPMs and his, tonight, Kurt, we perform the supreme achievement in cranial surgery, which I just want to make sure I say that because it's pretty hilarious. This is your supreme achievement in cranial surgery is I'm going to take a brain of a dead guy
and put it
in
into
a different dead guy.
Different dead guy.
And then like he's going to be out there like, look what I did.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to go, ah! Run screaming
I
from the building.
I don't know how he sees this playing out, but it's just
it's not
going to be what he's imagining.
Not the supreme achievement in cranial surgery.
No.
Although he probably says something like that later, so we'll come back to it in a few weeks.
So we get a little bit of a Marx Brothers routine where everybody's like, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening.
Well, I love it because Elsa comes in, and then behind her is Ludwig, and then to the right is Kurt. Or I'm sorry, Eric. There is no Kurt. And then Evelyn steps forward. I'm calling her Evelyn now. Elsa steps forward. Then from behind her comes Ludwig, and he's not as tall as she is.
No.
So this 5'9" thing, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
she was a bigger girl, and I'm not saying this to be offensive.
Nobody thinks you think she's gross.
Yeah, she was not petite.
Not petite, tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing clothes that emphasize
that make it look like she's got a curtain rod.
Yeah.
Which was the style at the time.
And then he comes. So when he comes around, he says something like "Good evening."
Good evening
to the Nazi, and then he looks over at Eric, and he almost looks surprised to see him. Like he didn't see him.
Yeah, because she blocked him.
She blocked him. That's what it looks like to me. I don't think that's what he's doing, but it really
no,
does.
but it kind of does look that way.
It kind of looks. Oh, Eric. Hey, what's up, buddy?
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, doctor. Good evening, Elsa. Good evening. Yeah. Doctor. Yeah. Let's do the whole deal.
Yep. Then does Eric say this? We're awfully sorry to disturb you, but we've called regarding the escaped maniac.
So I think it's the other guy.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is, because I wrote the constables played by John Carradine. Born
does
Richmond Reed Carradine, February 5th, 1906 in New York City.
That's the one.
Died November 27, 1988 in Milan, Italy. 88.
88.
82 years old, had 353 credits from 1930 to Oh, never mind.
Oh. I am curious.
Yeah, well, we'll get there.
And we've done it once. Didn't you do all this in During Bride?
I did. We'll do it in more
John Carradine's back, literally.
Yeah. But the guy does sound a little bit like him.
Yeah.
We're awfully sorry to disturb you, but we called regarding the escaped maniac.
We've called regarding the escaped maniac.
Yep.
Which is a thing that you would call on Ludwig for.
I don't know how many times someone has shown up here.
Yeah, we're sorry to bother you.
Sorry, but we're calling about
the escaped maniac. The what? Ah!
Yep.
Close the door!
And Ludwig's like, well.
Yeah, he says literally well. And you know
Well.
what I noticed? Not only does he say well, but in the script he says well. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's written that way.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
What do you want from me?
fuck you want from me? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What's that got to do with me?
Yep. Countryside's been combed. Every barn and haystack's been searched.
Yep.
And the neighboring village has been notified.
Have you tried the pub?
Yeah,
You know,
could be.
maybe they're in church. Did you look in church?
Yeah, but he and his
Do I have to do
companion-
everything for you, Eric? Have you checked the schools, local hospitals, local businesses? Maybe they went shopping. Have you checked Carl's house of Lederhosen? Have you searched every ravine, every crevice? The fiend must be found,
There you
Eric.
go.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
What I want out of each and every one of you is a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse in that area.
I might have had a THC gummy before I wrote that one.
No, that was good.
All right.
That was good. But he and his companion have disappeared completely.
His companion, I like. Yeah,
His life companion.
His life companion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like partner.
Yeah.
Did partner mean companion back then?
Yeah, I don't know.
Doctor Who fans will know the term companion
Oh,
because
dear
that's
Lord.
generally how we refer to the Doctor's companions. I wrote something called Citizen Kane framing, and it might be blocking, which is something that must have been something Roger Ebert talked about on the commentary for Citizen Kane, where it's during the scene where it's Geddes, I'll get you, Geddes, whatever, where they're on the thing, and as someone walks into the frame, there becomes, I want to call it a triangle, but it isn't. It's just an angle where everybody's focus is on the person in the center of this angle, and that's exactly what happens here. It's really well framed, where Ludwig is where he stands.
Well, that's-
the two guys are looking at him, and everybody's standing just in a way to put,
I mean,
and
that-
this is
that-
post Citizen Kane.
Doesn't really originate with Citizen Kane. I mean, that's just
I agree.
a framing, a way of composing a shot. I mean, you'll see that in paintings that are hundreds of years old.
I suppose that's probably true.
So
Some
it-
Renaissance paintings.
Yeah, it's not exclusive to Greg Toland and Orson Welles, but that's probably a very good example of it.
I think it's a good example here, but what's weird is I wrote that down and then I went back and watched the minutes again, and I think it happened in the previous minute, but I forgot to mention. So it's constantly happening, but what's cool about it is once you become aware of it, it gives me, I become a little bit more impressed by, if nothing else, the competence of Earl Kenton. Because it's all done, people do walk in and out of frames and get positioned right where they're supposed to be in order for there's some thought put into how where people stand.
Yeah, and this sort of follows the rule of thirds too, because you have the one guy on the left, Elsa and Ludwig in the center, and then Eric on the right. So it splits the screen into sort of a triptych.
Yeah. Who would ever thought we'd have so much to say about this part?
You're right.
But it's well done.
It's
put together.
well shot. Yeah, and having the guys back to us is kind of cool too.
Yes.
I think it just gives them
Another Citizen Kane thing.
Well, it gives them an air of maybe not mystery, but a sort of a sinister edge to him, or that he's somebody to be feared.
Well, and Eric also has his back, if that's what you mean, the two cops.
Well, he doesn't have his back to us when they come in. He's sitting on the desk.
Okay. Well, he certainly does once they get in the
then he stands
position.
up and turns to face them.
It's kind of weird because if you actually were in the room watching all this go down, it might look very mechanical because everybody has to get to their spots.
Well,
you've got to stand here, I've got to
there's-
stand here, you
that's-
got to stand here, I got to turn like this, and you got to go like that.
That's a problem where a scene like this where there's lots of blocking and,
Yeah.
and people have to hit their marks.
Right.
There's the scene in Touch of Evil, we'll talk about Citizen Kane again, where it's another long take. It's not remarked upon very frequently, where the camera, they're in the apartment.
Where they find the dynamite.
Yeah, not that particular scene, but it precedes that.
It is that scene, but it just takes
just-
all, and there is one cut, but it is basically
it
that
cuts
shot.
away and then comes back, and then it's photographed slightly differently for the remainder of the scene. But Quinlan is sitting like in the middle of the frame and doesn't move, and everybody moves around him.
Interesting.
So the shot is very kinetic, and you don't think to yourself, well, this is a really long. They haven't cut.
Yeah.
It has a flow. The other scene is the camera moves side to side throughout the apartment.
Oh, that's the one I thought you were talking about. Okay.
So it's the same set.
Yep.
And it's the same sequence.
And
But
this
they're
is
two
the one that
different shots.
Wells would always say that they shot that early on in the film, and it took days to get it down. And then as soon as they were done, he said, "Now we're a week ahead."
Yeah.
Because they had shot so much film.
Yeah, because they were.
I mean, usable
Universal
film.
execs were like, "You're taking so long to set this up.
Yeah.
Is this how this film is going to go? You're already a week behind schedule."
Yeah.
And he's by the time he was done, like,
was a
"Well,
week
now we're a
ahead.
week ahead."
Yeah, I don't know. I still maintain nothing better than just two people talking in a room for me. I'm such a bore. But like I watched a movie recently. Evil Under the Sun. It's another Agatha Christie movie.
Yeah.
And it's a Poirot, Peter Ustinov with.
Yeah, it was like the late 70s, early 80s, wasn't it?
Early 80s, I think 82.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I
who
saw
was on
it
the
in-
Avengers, but was also in the Avengers, the British TV show, and she was also in James
Diana
Bond.
Rigg?
I think it's Diana Rigg is in it.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater, actually.
Do you remember it? Roddy McDowell's
It's
in
been
it.
such a long time.
But I was just fucking fascinated by how well made it was. It's Guy Hamilton, who's made some James Bond
Some
movies.
really
but, like,
terrible James Bond movies.
yeah, not my favorites
Yeah.
by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know, terrible. There are terrible bits.
Oh, some of those later.
Yeah, some of the I can't remember which ones he made. Maybe I'm thinking he made Live and Let Die, didn't he?
He did. I mean, he made some good ones.
Yeah.
But I think he was sort of the director through the Roger Moore era.
and they get
So
progressively
some of those
worse.
last ones are just unwatchable.
Unwatchable. And so then to see him making this film, it was like, this is what this guy should be doing. This movie's beautiful.
Yeah.
And a third of it is two people talking in a room.
Yeah.
And I just think it's beautiful if you put it together right. It's
If you shoot it
can be
and-
really done well.
You know, one of my favorite movies, and I have no justification for this whatsoever other than it's exceptionally well written, is The Odd Couple. And that's basically two guys in a room for an hour and a half, too. I mean, they've opened it up a little bit
Yeah.
to make it a movie, but essentially most of it takes place in that apartment.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's just
I should
so...
go back and watch that.
It's so well written, and it's Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, whom I love.
Sure, everybody
Everybody
loves those
yeah.
two, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And by all accounts that I'm aware of, two nice guys. Two
Yeah, that's what
super nice
yes,
guys.
apparently.
Yeah, Jack Lemmon's famous for it, but I think so
I
is
think Matthau was just a big teddy bear, yeah.
So not really an odd couple, as it turns
Yeah,
out.
right. I mean,
It's
that's
two
why they
sweethearts.
worked together for decades,
Yes.
too. is-
How did they work together for decades? Were they?
I know there were gaps.
I feel
but-
like when the Minnesota one, Dirty Old Man, Grumpy Old Man,
Grumpy Old
when
Man.
that came out, I felt like it was like a
Dirty Old Man.
reunion in a way.
It was sort of, because
Like maybe they
were-
hadn't worked together.
There were
for-
gaps, but
Yeah.
but
But then after that, that was all they were doing. They
Yeah.
did like Odd Couple.
they did
2.
a couple too.
Is that
yeah.
any good?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm afraid to
no
watch
one
it.
knows.
But who was I talking to? Maybe it was Steiner. He's coming over tonight. We're going to watch movies with John and I. And
Grumpier Old Man and Odd Couple 2.
No, but I think it was him. We were talking, and he said it was pretty good. It was good, and it's
The Odd Couple 2 is?
it's Matthau and Lemon, so and
Can't-
Neil
can't
Simon
lose.
wrote it.
Okay.
So
Can't be too bad.
no, it was my friend Corey.
Okay.
So how bad could it be with those two and Neil Simon?
You gotta get the right two people sitting in a room.
Yeah, because I've seen lots of films where it's two guys sitting in a room talking. That's just unimaginably boring.
Maggie Smith
Yeah.
is hot in this film.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's our age,
Yeah.
but she's just amazing.
Oh, she made those couple films with Michael Palin in the 80s.
Is she the young hottie in like, what is it? The Mission or whatever?
She's a missionary.
Missionary. The Mission
She's
is
not the
other
young hottie, but she looks really good.
one. Yeah.
And she's about his age.
Yeah.
And then A Private Function.
Okay, I haven't seen either one of those.
Oh,
I know
they're-
I saw Missionary years and years.
Missionary is good. Private Function is even funnier, I think.
Are these both George Harrison films?
Yeah, they're both
Are we going
handmade.
back to The Handmaid?
Yep, they're both handmade.
I also think that there are several lines in that film that I was just like, I can't imagine any actors other than Maggie Smith delivering this. Like, there's
in
things you
Evil
can
Under the
write.
Sun?
You write, in Evil Under the Sun. You can write out a paragraph and hand it to an actor, and that's, the work isn't done.
Yeah.
But she can actually say things that sound like she's thinking of it off the top
She
of
is
her head.
excellent. Yeah,
that
she's
no other. Yeah, she's a real
she's
talent.
always been excellent. Yeah.
Okay, enough about Maggie Smith for some reason.
Any more questions, wise ass?
That sound can only mean one thing. It's time for got any wise ass comments, wise asses. Ghost of Frankenstein minute 45 version.
Edition.
Brought to you by
The fine folks at Patreon.
the fine folks at Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Frankenstein Minute and join at the wise ass level, and you get a copy of the minute. I'll send you the actual. What I do is
That's
I send
how much
you
you
an
care.
email.
That is how much you care. Is that
True.
you'll go out of your way
To send it.
each of them an email.
I collect the boxes I need to put the video cassettes in the boxes. They're all 1 minute long.
Yep.
They're all labeled individually and sealed with a kiss. No, I just send you an email, and then you can respond. And Will Hohenstein, did I get it?
Yep. That's how I've.
Well, that's right. I don't know if he's weighed in.
He hasn't
on the
weighed in on that,
pronunciation. I'm
so,
sure he'll
yeah.
weigh in if we've got it wrong now for the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Will writes, "We would rule the state and even the whole country." And he writes, yes, the town of Vassaria, a state in the country of Eastern Europe. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I forgot that we were in Vassaria. I kind of forget that part. Like, it does get lost for me a little bit. So, I guess that's probably
odd.
right. It is a town in a state in a country.
I was gonna make a joke about rule the state, even the city, because it always reminds me of they showed the Phantom Creeps on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and Lugosi says, the foreign countries are interested. They have offered me millions, perhaps. And then Tom Servo says thousands.
Yeah.
And so anytime there's a Lugosi thing like that,
I always think it's reverse it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you would have no idea. It is odd. That's what makes it odd, right? Is that it's the state inside the country? Because I don't know. Otherwise, it just sounds weird. It just doesn't sound
like
right.
you said, it doesn't sound European.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't match with the established. You know what I haven't checked in a while is that Glute article where he talked about how it all ties together.
Yeah, it's in that.
I wonder if he's got a comment on this one. How are we doing for time? Do you want me to go grab it?
No.
Okay.
To find it would take a while. So.
All right, and then what will now be 2 months ago, Vincent Hanam writes, "Hey guys, lovin' the pod. Here's a question."
Thank you.
Yes, we love you too, Vincent.
Yeah, I actually pointed my son in your direction because he's doing a whole Godzilla
Nice.
thing right now.
Yeah.
So my entire Godzilla collection
You should see
is
there's
gone.
a big empty section.
It's sad.
It's very sad to
makes me-
see.
Makes me a little sad.
Yeah. But where did you give him the big
No.
Criterion one?
No, that's why
he
all
doesn't
those
get
are gone.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, you get those back to me whenever you get a chance.
Yeah.
You're not touching this.
Yeah.
Here's a question. If you were imprisoned in a castle and could only choose one of the following to watch for the rest of your life, which would you choose? Ghost of Frankenstein or Frankenhooker, and why?
Oh, wow. That's deep.
Here's the problem. As is probably...
This is the norm.
As
I'm
is
guessing.
presumably understood by most people before it even comes out of my mouth. Yeah, I haven't seen
I haven't
it.
seen Frankenhooker.
Haven't seen Frankenhooker.
The year it came out.
I should get homework. Can we have
I'll
a Patreon? Maybe I'll just start my own Patreon. I actually do have a Patreon.
Yeah.
But I don't offer anything, and I have no tiers, and I don't put anything on it.
So you can
I just
assign
did it
yourself
because-
homework.
Anyways, I should now start a Patreon where people recommend movies I have to watch.
I've got a pretty lengthy list.
Yeah, well, you join the list, join the group.
So it's on me to answer this? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's up to you to answer first. Your answer will be more interesting, and then you can fade mine out.
Frankenhooker has a lot to recommend it.
Tell the folks, tell me what this movie is.
It's made, I don't know.
70-something?
Oh, no, it's the 90s.
Oh, is it?
Early
Oh,
90s.
okay.
Little aside is that Bill Murray was working, I think, on the movie Quick Change, which he directed.
He directed that, huh?
Yeah, and they were editing.
And then quit directing?
Yeah, I think it's the only time. They were editing Frankenhooker in the next edit bay, and so he went over to see what was going on. And so on the poster was a blurb, if you see one movie this year, make it Frankenhooker, Bill Murray. And that was enough for me to go see it.
That's pretty good.
And, my wife reluctantly went. And she actually enjoyed it. It's a comical take.
You're telling me a movie called Frankenhooker, it doesn't take itself seriously?
Plays by its own rules, I will
guess.
say. But it is very enjoyable. The guy who made Basket Case.
That I think I have seen. Which one's Basket Case?
The guy's got his like brother is just like this weird head with hands, kind of freakish
Maybe
thing.
I don't know Basket Case.
It's funny. It's creepy. It's
it's lumped in with things like Reanimator and
Yeah, it's from that
what's,
same sort of era.
Dead Alive, that kind of yeah.
Over the top kind of, yeah.
Yeah, Dead Alive is what I was probably thinking of, actually.
That's
I haven't seen Basket
That's the Peter Jackson.
Yeah, Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, and that's got a lawnmower in it too.
It does, yeah, yeah.
That was what sold it to me. I remember my brother saying, "It's great." He picks up a lawnmower, mowing down zombies with it. Yeah.
Reanimator I'll watch every so often because I just love it.
I don't know why it doesn't grab me. It's a good movie, but like it's not. It doesn't. I don't know. I don't understand the cult appeal. It's considered this great film.
Well, I think because when it came out, it was pretty fresh. It was something different.
Like the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mid to late 80s.
I was gonna say,
and it was
before
really
or after Evil Dead 2.
It was really out. I think before.
Okay.
Almost positive it was before, and it was pretty out there.
Also, it's the who wrote the story?
Lovecraft.
Yeah, it's a Lovecraft.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of successes in the Lovecraft.
Yeah, it's very hard to capture that on film.
The anti-Semitism is
it's really difficult to.
film.
Yeah. Anyway, so to choose between the two, long story short, I'd almost go with Frankenhooker because there's just so much more going on and there's just so much more out there. Plus, there's nudity.
Okay. And if you were locked in a castle by yourself for the rest of eternity with one movie to watch, you might want to see a boob every now and again.
Every once in a while.
Who can blame a guy,
would
right?
Would be a decent thing to,
yeah. I also am going with Frankenhooker because I haven't seen it, and so I assume there would be more to grab my attention than a movie that I've seen dozens of times and rarely enjoyed.
Well, and factor in us doing.
I shouldn't say that. I always enjoy, and that's the other part.
And factor in doing this,
which really,
I'd probably be done with it by the time we've come to the end.
It'll be interesting. Do you ever go back and watch Frankenstein or Bride?
Yeah.
And do you find that your perspective has changed? Have you lost it? Do you like it less or more, or it doesn't matter?
It hasn't changed.
Yeah.
I just wish there were things I would have thought of when we did it.
Yeah, when you watch it now, you're like, we really could have talked about this movie.
I had a brilliant idea, and I think I mentioned it when we had Barsky on.
Which was?
That when Waldman tells Henry, well, it was a criminal brain, and Henry sort of freaks for a second. Mm-hmm. Well, he already contemplated putting a criminal brain in when they cut the guy off of the gallows. Oh, its neck is broken. Brain is useless. That was a criminal. He wouldn't be hanging there if he weren't.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Why would he care if it's a criminal brain now?
You said that on our podcast?
Yeah, I said it to...
if Barsky was on, I was probably drinking.
Yeah. And you both said, did you mention that when we did it? Like, no, I just thought of it a couple days ago.
Yep, there you go. All right, there's your answer. Frankenhooker it is. I'm going to hit like. Should I respond back as Frankenstein Minute?
Sure.
We just responded, or wait, we have answered, I don't know, how do you say this? We have just answered this question on the podcast. Stay tuned.
Minute 44.
Is it
45?
45?
Minute 45.
Stay tuned. Wait a minute. On the podcast, episode
4.44.
4.45. Stay tuned for our answers. Okay. I probably typed it wrong. I do
listen to their podcast too and find it very entertaining.
It's a good point. I should also admit to listening to their podcast. I think they do a good job. They do something quite different than what we do.
They do. They're far more structured, and they do film at a time per episode, which
maybe a little smarter.
Well, there's that was unspoken.
Quite a bit less fucking around.
Yep.
But I do enjoy their podcast as well. They also, if you're not into kaiju, they seem to have a very broad definition of their remit. In fact, the reason we met them was they did a live show at the Trilon that was Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So they don't always just do kaiju.
Yep.
Or else their definition of kaiju is very broad.
Well, I mean, technically it means monster, so...
Let's see here. Did we get all these? See, I thought we had more comments, but it was that they don't just always come in the right order. I also did this thing this week where I put the minutes out a little bit earlier, so in the hopes that we get more responses, and I think some people did respond. Some more people responded because if you put out an episode and say, we're recording this tomorrow, then they don't always get enough time. What are we looking at for time? Because I'm done. I've had it.
Listen, I was done at episode 43, but here we are.
Yep.
Well, there we go.
Do we want to say anything? I don't know. I guess that's it.
Well, okay, we've discussed The Wolfman, which is coming up in like 5 months or something.
Yeah, I didn't realize we had that much time.
It's a ways out, but the thing we're struggling with is the next film is not so much a direct sequel to this, but to The Wolfman.
Yeah.
Do we want to discuss The Wolfman as an episode? Do we want to do it minute by minute? So what's your opinion, dear listeners? How should we handle The Wolfman? Should it be a single or two-part or however long it takes in between the two films? Should it just be a bonus? Should it be minute by minute, which I'm not particularly fond of?
Yeah, we already know your opinion, Wally.
Yeah.
He thinks we should have done it already.
Yeah, right.
It should have been in place of this one.
Yeah.
Well, not in place of this
But
one,
before this
before
one.
this one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think it's funny, as you were saying, the next film's not so much a sequel to this one. It hadn't even occurred to me, but you're right. The changes that were made to the film make it less of a sequel to this one.
Yeah, as written and shot, it was a direct sequel to both.
Right.
But the final edit has sort of taken that away from it.
Yeah, it becomes a generic
It's a
monster
very generic
film.
Frankenstein movie.
Yeah.
Very, very generic.
Yeah.
At that point, the Frankenstein parts just sort of seem like a sore thumb almost. It flows along great, and then it hits this wall, and we'll talk about it.
I guess it's never felt that way to me, because it's like a road picture or something like that where you just this is a new part of the adventure, but it still makes it. It's still, even by what I just said, it's clearly a Wolfman movie.
Yeah.
Wolfman meets Frankenstein is really what that
it should
movie
have been called. Yeah.
Or Frankenstein wolfs the meat man. I hate that joke.
Below